Hello and welcome to the show. Without any further ado, we're going to go back to the Peak District for part 2 of Tales from the Trails. This is the outside of where we've been staying. So these were the original garages, and what they've done basically is just convert one of the old storerooms or garages into an Airbnb, which is great. There's one particular theme, another bathroom over there. But when we come through here, where they've got our fridge, it's only a little thing, but why am I so fascinated by the fact we've got a secret corridor? It clears off, which presumably actually goes up to the main church. Right, so yesterday I mentioned that our brief was to bring scramblers.
Yes. Guess what I bought?
Did you bring a scrambler?
I bought a scrambler.
Yes, so what's your scrambler then, Tom?
I've got the CCM Spitfire Maverick, which I love because it's the same name as my dog. It's CCM's kind of, their Maverick is one they've adapted. They've got a kind of scrambler version. It's got kind of slightly knobbly tyres. I mean, it's not a traditional scrambler, but it certainly can do some kind of bits and bobs off-road if you want it to. But it's just a great looking bike. It's a great sounding bike.
Yep.
Unless you have to follow it all day.
Keep going. I want to hear how many positive points you have on it.
There are lots of positive points, actually. So you're going to get all like, there are a few niggly things. So the tank isn't very big.
That's an understatement.
If you go on a long journey, the seat's not terribly comfortable for long journeys.
That's not what you were saying to me.
I was in a lot of pain, actually. And it's quite vibey because it's a big 650 single. But I think the key thing to remember here...
I know it. Style over substance.
No, it's not.
There we go. Yeah. So that's the end of Tom's review.
It's a scrambler, it's not a Grand Tourer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's not... if you were to kind of poodle around some green lanes on it at 30, 40 mile an hour, it'd be great. And sitting around the twisty roads that we've done at, 45, 50 is great. And it's, I've got no problems with it at all. And, the truth is, it would be crazy for having that bike as your only bike. What that is a second bike for weekend playing, or posing.
I was going to say, it's a second bike for going, look how fancy it is.
But look how fancy
it is. It is a
It
good
looks
looking
so
bike.
good.
It is a good looking bike.
It looks so good.
And
I tell you what, when we pull up somewhere, everyone's looking at my bike. No one's looking at your bikes.
Oh, I'm not so sure.
If I might,
if everyone's looking at your bike and going, "Oh God, that's ugly," everyone just ignores Sam's bike because it's the most, bland thing in existence.
It literally fades into the background.
Yeah. So Sam, your bike.
So I turned up and I said, "Tom, where's my bike?" And he said, "It's right in front of you." I said, "I can't see it."
Is it that bland?
it's that bland. And I had a look and I went, "Oh, you got me a scooter?" No. It's an 1100 NT from Honda. And first and foremost, I'm surprised Honda actually allowed me to have another one of their
I can't
bikes.
believe Honda let you have a bike when you've dropped... I mean, you've already dropped that one.
Yeah, well, it was in the driveway, but,
you do have a habit of...
just with Hondas. And I apologise, Honda, right now. But, okay. I hope everyone's sitting comfortably because this is going to be a long one. To be fair... The NT 1100 is a lot of bike for the money, and I think there have been some really good reviews, rave reviews about it in the press. It's got Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, heated grips. I mean, it's almost like a pared back Goldwing, but for a bit more sit-uppy, righty kind of bike.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it's comfortable on the highways. You've got cruise control. I mean, it's lovely. I am biased because my focus is enduro off-road bikes. So I'm not going to be probably the best person to review. But I have to say that the DCT on this is clunky, lazy.
Okay, right. Before we get on to DCT, there is a.
It's always about
there
the
is
DCT.
a history of our show getting slammed for hating on DCT.
But I don't.
You hated the DCT. You hated the DCT.
No. On the
I've never ridden
no,
one.
I never hated the DCT. I didn't understand it on the Africa Twin. Okay, not that I didn't understand it. I think one of the comments was, well, you can shift it using the.
So fans of the DCT will be glad to know that Sam's rant about DCT went on so long that the camera ran out of battery. And you don't have to now sit through any of that.
No.
I think everyone's got the idea.
Yeah.
So, do I get to talk about the KTM?
Well, no, hang on a sec. Hang on.
you haven't finished
No,
yet? Okay, sorry.
I haven't finished.
God.
Sorry.
Please,
Really? Because it's been so long.
I know. Just one thing.
The sun's
And
slowly moving across the
Honda, if you're listening to me, which you probably aren't, you're probably kind of seething now and writing me off your list. But the styling, I just want to bring that up. It is not the most inspired.
If you want to talk about designs that I think are properly hideously ugly, let's talk about Graham's bike.
Yeah.
Honestly, it looks.
It is a bit pointy.
I was sitting there and I was doing the close-ups of the bikes earlier, and I thought to myself, when did KTM start making ugly bikes? I think it's a horrible looking bike. Absolutely horrible.
Hang on. So I don't mind the looks, appreciating their Marmite. But so it's a sports tourer.
Yeah.
Oh my god, is it fun to ride? Yeah, it is amazing.
With its tiny front wheel.
Tiny front wheels. It's short. It's 100. It's the same engine as my 1290 Adventure, but it's 175 horsepower rather than 160. Not that you can particularly feel it, because there's nowhere in the Peak District you can go and blast it, because they've always got speed limits. Brakes are amazing. As a bike to ride, if you were doing kind of twisty roads and stuff, just fantastic. I would say that is every bit as much fun in its sports part of the touring as the Fireblade that I rode recently, but in a package that is much easier to ride. I can fit on it and not feel like I'm having to fold myself into a third of my size. Yeah, as a sports tourer, it is absolutely spot on. It does the sporty stuff. You can absolutely tour on it. It does, because it's a GT. It comes with, although I haven't got it on today, but it does come with full hard luggage. I think it's great. So before I go into my really interesting history of the Cat Fiddle, which
more history.
sounds falling asleep already, one just kind of little respectful nod to all the lives lost along this road, because genuinely there have been many motorcyclists who have lost their lives. It's an amazing piece of tarmac to ride, but it's also incredibly unforgiving. Stone walls everywhere, drop-offs, fences, and it doesn't forgive mistakes. So a little nod to everybody who lost their lives along here. Well, the Cat and Fiddle itself was at one point the second highest pub in Britain, apparently. It's now the highest distillery in Britain, apparently.
See, you learn something every day here.
Right, it's very interesting. But as a pub, it shut down 2015, I think. Apparently the guy said it just couldn't make money. But I think it's a success as a distillery. It's just beautiful up here.
Yeah, stunning.
It's
Absolutely stunning. Cinematic, I think is the word.
Yeah. And I'm going to ask Tom just to whiz round in a second, because it shows to me how popular this place is as a stopping point for motorcycles. You don't often see restaurants or distillery type car parks that have their own space for motorcycles, which is just behind you, Tom.
And the adventure continues later on in the series.
And now it's time for 10 in 10.
Right, well, we're back with 10 and 10, and Charlie's going to go straight in with the first question.
Yes, it's a really complicated one as well. Who are you and where do you come from?
Great question. Hello, I am Ben King. I'm 26. I'm from Hertfordshire, just north of London. And I guess I've got a minute to fill and say more. I guess.
So what do you do?
So what do I do?
What do you do?
Well, at the moment, I was trying to ride around the world, but then I had to put my trip on pause because of COVID. So I left my bike in Pakistan. It's still there now, in Lahore. And then I came back home and I got a job as a delivery driver for Waitrose to keep myself busy during the pandemic, which was fun. And then I thought I want to change into something different because I thought COVID was going to go on for a long time. So I started looking at marketing roles, and I've literally somehow, I don't know how, I started applying for jobs that I was way underqualified for. And I ended up now got a job doing marketing with Google, which is great fun.
Oh, wow.
So now I get to do the home page, the doodles that end up on the homepage, which is great fun. I still feel like a fraud. I don't know how I've managed to end up in this position, having just ridden a bike. That's pretty much all I've ever done, really. So.
Okay, question 2. How did you get into motorcycles?
So my parents, no one in the family ever had bikes. When I was 17, I had a car crash and I was supposed to go to, I didn't know what to do. I was thinking of becoming a teacher or going into business or into music. I couldn't decide, had a car crash. It was quite bad. Luckily, everything was fine. But I ended up fleeing the country and didn't go to university. And when I was 17, moved to Asia. Got a place I was teaching scuba diving in Thailand and got a bike, little scooter to get around all the dive sites. Then decided to then head off and do a bike trip from there to Vietnam, over half a year or so. Loved it, ended up settling down in Vietnam and got loads of bikes and started restoring old classic bikes abandoned from the Vietnam War. And then that was my love of riding. So yeah, did that, and then I went to South America and got another bike and then did the South America trip. And that's when I decided to do the big trip on the Honda CRF. But ever since then, bikes has become my life now.
And how old did you say you were? 50?
Favorite bike and why?
Oh, my nickname when I used to work was Twiglet because apparently my legs are like a stick. Bit offended, but anyway. Because I'm so small and skinny, I need like a small, lightweight bike. So to be fair, when I looked at doing this trip, I looked at getting an F800 GS or a Tiger, and I tried one, and it was massive. And then Austin Vince actually persuaded me to get the CRF250, which actually at the time I thought, oh, it's not really for me. It looks like a toy. Then as soon as I got it, I was like, this is epic. And I went around doing the bridleways with Austin to test out his wife's bike, Lewis's bike, and I just loved it. And then that was the trip that I did. That was the bike I did the trip on, and it was just epic. So yeah, definitely the CRF250. Although saying that, I've now got a Bonneville, which I treat myself to during COVID because I couldn't travel, and my bike was still in Pakistan. And so the Bonneville is now up there. But it looks cool, but it's not as functional off-road. So for off-roading, the CRF is...
Okay, this could be a tricky one, bearing in mind how many places you've been to. But what is your favourite place to ride and why?
Oh, yeah. So yeah, the whole of South America as a continent was just epic. I loved it. And just because of just the landscape was nuts, the food, the people, everything was really cool. But then I guess for riding, I say Pakistan, like the Himalayas and the Karakorams up north towards the China border. That was incredible. And it was really funny. Every time you drop the bike, literally within 20, 30 seconds, someone will come from nowhere and help you pick the bike up. Whereas if in London, if you did that, you'd be waiting for hours before someone helped you or whatever, if you ran out of fuel. So yeah, it was nuts. Everywhere you look, you're just looking. They say it's like Switzerland on steroids up in the Himalayas, and it really is. It is just absolutely incredible. And you got K2, Nanga Parbat, all these massive mountains all around you. It is surreal. So yeah, I'd say. But then also Iran.
So, what was your best moment on a motorcycle?
Oh, well, I guess I'd have to say. I'd be boring and say Pakistan again. Like going from that section, going from Iran to Pakistan through Balochistan through the desert. That was super surreal. And because the bike broke down, but as you know, when the bike breaks down, that's when the best stories happens.
Yeah. Well, the bits you remember the most as well.
Well, that's it. And so now every time the bike broke down, I just knew. I was like, maybe it was like naivety, but I was like, you know what? Even though the bike's broken, I know it's all going to work out, and it'll be a great story to tell in a few years' time. So yeah, when the bike broke, that was really cool. And also because I know nothing about about bikes and mechanics. People would message me online and say, oh, what oil do I put on my bike? And I'd actually Google, like, what's the best oil to use? And apparently it was like 10W40. So I'd be like, oh, this is what I use. They're like, oh, thank you. I know nothing about bikes. So yeah, that was really cool. Like just breaking down in, that was probably one of the highlights. Breaking down, and then all these locals coming and rescuing me and saving me and got through the day.
Okay, slightly tricky one again, because if those are your best moments, what would be your worst moment on a bike?
Oh, well, yeah, all the best moments are also the worst ones are the best ones. But I would say going through, because I didn't plan my trip very well, so I ended up leaving in the middle of winter. So Europe and the Balkans, when I got to Eastern Europe, it was just the middle of winter, deep snow and ice. And because I'm not a very good rider, I've got really bad balance. It was just lethal for me. But the cold, because I'm a stick, I get so cold so quickly that I think going through the winter was just awful. And I didn't have any heated gloves, so I put my gloves on. I stopped putting my gloves on the engine to try and warm them up for a bit, put them back on, and then they'd be warm for like 10 seconds, and then they'd get cold again. And it was just awful. I put the gloves on the engine, and then they had like a plastic coating, and then I tried to get the gloves off, and they like melted themselves. It was very embarrassing. But yeah, that was awful. Then I finally discovered heated clothing existed, and then and those Oxford muffs as well.
Yeah,
but they were a lifesaver.
Yeah.
But before that, that was the worst part. I think was.
So, who are your heroes and influencers?
Oh, yeah.
Influencers.
Oh, 100%. Definitely Ewan. He's. I'm kidding.
I was going, who? Fuck you. Who invited this guy? Jesus. It's not in my contract.
Who are my heroes? No, I'd have to say Charley. I think, the unsung hero.
Yeah.
I don't know. Influences. Well, because I never grew up with bikes. I sort of didn't really know it about anything. But I guess I mean, everyone says the long way round. It's a cliche answer, but it is true. I remember I was in South America and someone showed me long way round. And I didn't even know it was a thing. And then as soon as I saw that, I was like, that's what I've got to do. And then Austin Vince then was a massive part of me getting the CRF. So he was a massive part of my trip. If it hadn't been him, I would have been on the bigger bike. So yeah, I'd say you and Austin Vince. Oh, and you, Graham.
Suck up. Oh, good save. Good save. What do you do when you're not on a bike?
Oh, well, yeah. So obviously, when I was in school, when I was living out the car crash, I was moving to Australia to become a semi-professional drummer because I love that's what I've always done. So I love music. That's always been my main thing. So yeah, when I'm not riding, that is sort of that's my go-to. But obviously you can't carry a drum kit or a guitar or a piano on the bike. So I sort of neglected that part of my life for a couple of years while I was traveling. But yeah, so now that I'm back home, I can finally start doing that kind of stuff again. I guess. Yeah, I wish I was an outdoorsy person, but because I get so cold so easily because I'm so like stick thin, I can't really do sort of adventure stuff. That's why it kind of worked out well that when I was doing my trip, it was always crazy heat like in Iran.
Well, you use my diet and I can get some weight on you. Okay, but anyway, the cliche question is what's next for you?
What is next? Well, yeah, so there's three guys who are the youngest people to go around the world: Henry Crew, Jack Groves, and Kane Avellano. When we've all sort of returned from our trips, we've all become really good friends. And so we're looking at possibly doing a trip down Africa and hopefully filming it properly. We don't know if it'll happen. We're trying to get us all together in one room is just a nightmare because we're all so busy with our lives. But that's what we're looking at doing hopefully next, which would be amazing if that goes ahead, because we've all done trips around the world, but none of us have really done Africa. And that looks absolutely epic. So that's hopefully what we'll do next. But if not, if that doesn't go ahead, then hopefully next year, maybe we'll see, I can get back to Pakistan, pick up my bike, if it's still there and if it's still in one piece, and then continue my trip. Because I've still got a long way to go on my trip. Like in terms of...
Final question, right. What's been the biggest highlights of 2022 for you?
Well, actually, I had so many big plans for this year, and they've all fallen apart. So I was going to do a big bike trip in Europe, just to sort of feed the itch while I'm now working a normal job. But just before I was supposed to go, I ended up getting hit by a little old lady in a Fiat 500 who knocked me off the Bonneville, threw me off onto the other side of the road. Luckily, the car's managed to stop and I'm fine. But I've now obviously got no bike and my shoulder's now messed up. I had to get the train here. I just put this on just so people would think I was a biker. But yes, so there was all my trips were cancelled, which is so frustrating. But I guess doing my job, which I absolutely love, sadly that's kind of become like the highlight of my year. Now that I can't actually ride. But I'm basically just looking forward.
Fantastic. Right, I've actually got 101 other questions that I can now ask you off camera. Try and find out a little bit more about where on earth is that bike in Pakistan? How do you know it's going to be safe? Like, loads of questions. I want to find out.
I love Africa. My favourite continent to ride in.
And do you reckon the east or the west coast is?
I would say more east, but because then you go through Sudan, Ethiopia, Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, and all that kind of stuff is stunning. But it's the only place left in the world where you have to stop and 40 elephants crossing the road, and you have to wait for them.
And is it paved yet the whole way down?
Not all, but a lot of it is paved now. So,
really?
But you can find plenty of off road.
Yeah. That's my only worry. I want to do it now before it becomes, because I think was it Mongolia now is like paved, right?
No.
Is that not? Is that still?
No, yeah, no. That maybe. I mean, when we were there in 2006, there was only a few thousand miles of tarmac, and the country's bigger than Europe, so. You think how much tarmac there is in Europe? Yeah. I mean, so no, there's not. But there's plenty. Some roads are tarmac, but they're so fucked up that they may as well be off road anyway. So
it's funny. I think people, that there's that. I think in Mongolia there was that rock that destroyed one of the bikes. Was there a rock or something? Something happened, and when people go do their own trips now, they'll like take a photo and be like, that's the same section where. I think it was the bike that there was something happened. Claudio's one. Yeah. The people which is nuts that it's still there and that's not been spoilt yet. But yeah, I want to do Mongolia and Africa before it gets all paved up.
Yeah. No, soon all the roads are going to be paved, and that would be a terrible thing. Yeah. But mind you, Spain. Austin Vince was saying that and I've done a lot of riding in Spain as well, and there's so much off road there. I mean, you can go from Barcelona to Marbella off-road.
Yeah. You can do the same going across the Pyrenees, so go from east to west. It's endless. That's incredible.
Yeah, because that's why just before I left on my trip, Austin invited me to do one of his Mini Mundo trips, and I'd never been off-road before, and I was so unprepared. And he gave me one of his overalls and said,
safety overalls, great protection.
Honestly, when it rains, it's like a week to get them to dry. Like the most impractical thing ever. Yeah. But they look pretty cool.
Well, we were talking about you were talking about doing your thing with no GPS and stuff like that, and and that idea of if Shackleton was given a GPS, he'd probably grab it. But that's the great thing about modern gear is you can have one jacket that does it all, and it's light and it's protective, and because we all want light equipment now, don't we? We don't want all that heavy stuff anymore.
That's the only bad thing about the sort of hipstery bike shed style is that none of it's waterproof. So you look really cool, but as soon as it starts raining,
but it's always fashion first, safety
second. Exactly.
If you crash down the road, you go sliding down the road, and you think this fucking hurts, but I look good.
Anyway, listen, thank you so much.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah. Awesome, so good. Really good fun. Sweet.
It is now time for part 2 of Old versus New.
And it's the time where Charley gets reunited with the 1150.
Ooh, off we go.
That's so much smoother. Oh, yes. So how long's it been since you've ridden an 1150?
Oh, the 1150. Well, this 11. Oh my God, I can't remember. It must be 10 years since I rode 1150 Adventurer. It feels a lot smaller than I remember, actually.
This just feels huge. I still remember the first time I rode the 1200. I compared it to riding, I've ridden Judge Dredd's bike, and I always forget what it's called. Yeah, but that huge Judge Dredd thing?
Yeah.
Particularly the GSA, 'cause it's just so wide.
I mean, the great thing about this is that there's nothing to it. So, it's just your basics, isn't it? And funny enough, when you and I came back from Long Way Round, and when the TV show finally came out, BMW had completely changed their whole fleet. Within a year or 2 years, they changed everything. The 1200 came out. And they went from a sort of pipe and slippers kind of brand to being right up there on the forefront and making sexy bikes. Because up until that point, their bikes weren't that sexy, to be honest. This was probably their sexiest bike, and I do remember this looked very, very well. And then looking up at yours, the difference is just phenomenal, really.
Yes, I recall when I was an older teenager riding bikes, and my dad going off, he rode bikes as well, and he came back and he said, "I've just ridden this really strange BMW motorcycle." And he said it's kind of a bit like an off-road bike, but no one had, a GS was a weird thing, and he explaining to me about the telelever suspension. And he said he really liked it, but he wasn't sure it was quite right for him.
Yeah, but you know who made this bike like super cool was a guy called John Deacon, and he was a Dakar legend, and he was Britain's most successful Dakar rider. But he had probably the most beautiful looking Dakar bike of all time, and it was this 1150 that was made from the factory as a factory racing bike, and they got rid of the telelever on the front and put white power suspension on the front and jacked it up, and oh my god, it is one of the most beautiful bikes you'll ever see with that. And can you imagine tearing through Africa in the sand dunes on an 1150? I mean, it's just extraordinary, the power.
I think the looks of them are just,
stunning.
1150 is I think, such an iconic looking bike, and obviously that has been significantly impacted by your show, but I still think the 1250 is still very obviously a GS. Although it's huge in comparison, it weighs more, it's waterproof and everything else, it's still unmistakably a GS.
Yeah, no, and it's very confidence inspiring. You sit on the bike and you go along the roads like this, and they're nice and twisty, and it really makes you want to go, and that's a lot of these modern bikes now have such amazing suspension and such amazing setup that they just want to ride, and it's a pleasure. I mean, if you sat there and you had all of the bikes lined up, you had the Triumph Tiger, you had the BMW, had the Harley Davidson, and you had them lined up and said, well, we're just going to drive to the south of Spain now. Which one would you take?
If I was having to ride there in as short a time as possible, say a maximum hours during the day, in the saddle, it'd be one of these.
Yeah, sure.
I've always said that. I just think in terms of mile munching, they're so comfortable, so easy to ride.
But even going around little country roads like this, it's a pleasure. But yeah, I mean, even this bike's still got it in the corners,
Yeah. I can feel the difference with this. It takes a bit more effort to swing it into a corner because it's so much heavier. However, it's still just as good in the corners.
Yeah, this is, I have to say, I think the one you're on handles better, I have to say. That's hardly surprising, is it, really?
No,
because this is a bike that is stemmed from the early thousands and even earlier than that,
But I wouldn't say that it feels like a bike that's 20 years older than this.
No, this rides really well. Mind you, this has not got very much mileage on it. It's only done 37,000 miles.
Yeah.
Look at that. Oh my golly gosh, that's very pretty.
Yeah.
So what better way to look at the countryside on a day like this on the back of a motorbike? It's just heavenly, isn't it?
There's no better way. Well, I don't think there's no better way to see the world, full stop.
Yeah. And, it's good for your mental health as well. Yeah, no, it's very nice. Actually, this seat is a little more comfortable, to be honest. I know it's a bit low, but that's just rider preference, isn't it? The lowness.
Yes.
But it is comfortable.
you know, if I was going to grab one and just cruise down the motorway and go down to Wales to see a few friends for the weekend, I might just take this bike, to be honest. If I was going to do a little bit more, I would take what you're riding. But, you know, this brings such nice memories back. And this bike wheelies really well. It's a lot harder to wheelie this bike, but it does wheelie quite well.
Yeah, so my take on you being able to wheelie this one so well is because I never had the confidence to do that.
Yeah.
However, the fact that you can just pull away at almost any speed in first, second, or third, and that torque is just glorious.
No, it's glorious. And really, oh yeah, beauty. Oh yes, this is what they were really made for. To be off-road. This is the purest form of riding, this is. I have to say. It's my favourite part.
You rode off-road as a teenager, didn't you? A lot.
Oh yeah. From when I was 6 years old, I was riding motorbikes, and always up in the Wicklow Mountains. Yeah, it was that was where I crafted my tools. You know, no, it was just good fun.
Unlike you, I was very late to off-road.
Off-road.
Yeah, and really 10 years ago.
Well, there we go. Look, straight from the dirt, straight onto the tarmac, twisty road, and then off you go. And this is what this whole freedom of motorcycles is, and the freedom of an adventure bike is. And that, you know, there's nothing better than when you get an adventure bike, you get a couple of mates out and you're going to go camping for a couple of days, and you put everything you need on the bike, and then off you go. And nowadays, you know, you can get these fantastic phone holders, you know, like the quad lock, and you can clip it on, and then you can organize your maps with Google Maps, and then you're away. You know, all the information you'll ever need is on your phone.
If we were to play a game of top trumps between these two, I suppose that would win on pretty much every account, apart from the fact it's heavier. Mm-hmm. But I don't think either of us would say that's the way to compare them. I think you've got to compare them. Yeah, they're 20 years apart. It's going to win in almost every account.
Well, it boils down to your heart then, doesn't it?
Yeah, so it's more about the way it makes you feel.
So how would you, you know, nostalgically, you know, I would say that, you know, this in your stable would be a wonderful thing. But if you had this bike and this bike in your garage, you know, which bike would you take out every time? Probably this one. Yeah. So you know, I think so. And as you say, you know, there's a 20-year gap there, and but you know, but having said that, and I think you would agree is that, you know, going along the twisty roads, and we were swapping bikes, you know, this. Just on a twisty road, if you weren't really going for it, they're both pretty similar.
Yeah, you wouldn't say there is 20 years between them. You'd say 19, no, you wouldn't say 19. You'd say it was kind of, I don't know, 6 or 7 years between them, maybe even 10, but certainly not 20 years. Now, if I think about other bikes where you've got 20 years between the models as they've grown up, I can't think of any other bike where that 20-year gap would seem that small. However, I'm in 100% in agreement. If I had both of them in the garage,
you take this one out
every time.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
You know,
we're in complete agreement.
Our ridiculously useless opinions, you know, is that we'll go for this one probably. But you know, I'd be quite happy to get on this and ride down to the south of France.
Yeah.
For a glass of rosé.
Yeah.
On the beach.
As the owner, I think, did a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
But I'll still go with that one. Give it a choice.
This wheelie's better.
I know, I've been watching you do it all day. So that new GS, as we said on the segment, is a stunning bike. But the old one will have a special place in my heart. You know, I own one, my black and gold one. It'll always have a special place for me.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, for me, it was always about, it's how my whole career started, really. But anyway, enough of that. Now we're going to go back to the Motorbike Olympics, because it's all starting to get a little bit extraordinary. Painful.
Horrible.
For some people, yeah. Luckily not me, but you know.
No, because you didn't fall off.
I didn't fall off. Well, yeah.
Right, Mark, over to you for round 2.
So this is a bit of a different ball game, so that was nice and easy. This is relatively easy, but we have got quite a nasty downhill to come out.
You got this, Kristy. Yeah, I think so.
That clutch is horrible.
Right, so because I dropped the bike, that means I have 5 dabs. And you can't actually get any more than 5 dabs, so I'm thinking there's absolutely no point in me going down that hill. So I'm going to call it a day. Some would call that maybe cheating, but I just call it hard thinking.
Well, that was quite kind of fun. It gets your adrenaline up when you have a bit of competition, and someone actually, I'm not going to mention names, went through it clean, which puts extra pressure on you. And anyway, I dabbed, but I got the feeling that they were all looking at me and psychologically pushing me. That's what I felt. No, don't you get involved, young lady. So it's their fault. But listen, on to the next one. So let's wait and see who does what. They get a little bit harder each time. I'm just putting them into a false sense of security at the moment.
So I think if we were getting scored, like a school card scoring system type of thing, I think the 3 of us could do better, and Lara would have A star next to her.
A star.
But do you not, when we walked it through, did you not just worry that when we were just walking down that kind of drop off, I was like, oh God, we've got to do this. That was the worst bit for me.
I literally didn't even get that far, so that was not an issue for me. I just put it on its side,
Well, seeing as you were the only one who cleared it, someone pushed me, so I don't know where that came from. But anyway, but listen, thank you very much for watching this episode. We really enjoyed making it. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. Next time, we're going to do a 6-hour electric enduro race, and we think possibly the first of its kind. So tune in, ride safe, rubber side down, and all that jazz.